It's hard to believe that it's been nearly a decade since Volvo began the rebirth of their company, which started all back in 2015 with the introduction of the redesigned second-generation Volvo XC90. This was the first vehicle that was built on the company's SPA architecture. It introduced a plethora of new powertrains, all of them powered by boosted four-cylinder engines in both non-electric and electrified forms. Now, over the years, the XC90 has been a huge success for Volvo, with the company moving between 30 to 40,000 units annually here in the US, and for 2024, we are kind of approaching the final years of this current generation XC90, which is why I'm standing by this 2024 T8 Recharge Ultimate. It's essentially the most expensive, most powerful, or most luxurious version of the current generation XC90, and the big question I want to answer, if you guys have always had your eye on Volvo's flagship electrified SUV, how does the 2024 model continue to stack up against its newer competitors? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the styling of the 2024 XC90, let me go ahead and pop the hood and show you guys what's powering this thing. Now, Volvo continues to offer a choice of 3 different powertrain options: the B5, the B6, and of course this T8 Recharge. This is the top of the line powertrain, which is the only way that you can get a plug-in hybrid in the XC90. Now, over the years, this T8 platform, or this T8 powertrain, has been updated slowly almost every other year. And back in 2022.5, so mid-year 2025 or 2022, Volvo did upgrade the battery pack and upgrade the rear electric motor. So this is still combining a 2-liter boosted 4-cylinder, except now it's no longer turbocharged and supercharged. It's only turbocharged, so it's a 2-liter turbo direct injection 4-cylinder. The engine on its own makes 312 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. The difference, of course, is the rear electric motor. It has been seriously beefed up about a year and a half ago to now produce 143 horsepower on its own, around 228 pound-feet of torque on its own. Combined, Volvo says you got a total of 455 horsepower and 523 pound-feet of torque. That's around 50-ish horsepower more on both ends compared to the pre-refreshed T8 powertrains. And they also now have a much larger battery pack. The battery pack is 18.8 kilowatts, around 15 kilowatts is usable. That's up from 11.6 in the pre-refresh model. That's good for up to 33 miles of all-electric range, Volvo says, along with getting around 26, 27 mpg on the gas engine alone. It'll do around 58 mpg if you guys have it in the hybrid function. Now, the transmission continues to be an 8-speed automatic transmission, and this car comes with electronic all-wheel drive as standard because the rear axle, again, is powered by that electric motor. There's no physical connection between the front gas engine and the rear back axle. In terms of the performance, Volvo says you should get to 60 in around 5 seconds. It has a top speed of around 112 miles an hour, and this vehicle will still tow a maximum of 5,000 pounds. Because of all the battery packs and the electric motors, this is the heaviest XC90. It weighs in at just over 5,100 pounds. But let's go ahead and close up the hood, which I love how Volvo allows the hood to open up so largely. But as I shut the hood, you can take a look at the rest of the styling. Now, Volvo gave the XC90 a significant refresh in terms of the design back in 2020. However, it still pretty much looks like the same car that we saw back in 2016. This is a really handsome, attractive vehicle. I think it's aged extremely well, and Volvo has decided not to make too many changes to the design over the years. You can see this color that I'm showing you is called Vapor Gray. I feel like it's a new color that was introduced either this year or last year. It certainly looks good with the metallic fleck. It looks great on the lines of the XC90. You can see the headlights has the signature full LEDs with the Thor's Hammer LED daytime running light and turn signal. Down here you can see a lot of chrome and some functional air vents. The grille also got a slight update in 2020 with it, where it got the new Volvo logo. It got a new concave vertical slat with the chrome accents. You can see down here, no fog lights on this model, even though the car is showing fog lights inside the vehicle on the turn signal stalk. But as you can see, no actual fog lights on the car. Volvo used to offer like an R design or an R or a dark package where you would black out the chrome, although I couldn't find it on the build site for the 2024 model year. It may just not be on the Recharge model. But keep that in mind if you guys prefer the dark accents as opposed to the chrome. Now, being that this is Volvo's flagship SUV, although technically the EX90 is going to be larger, this is still a pretty small vehicle by the class standards. So at 195 inches long, this is about the same length as a BMW X5 and a Mercedes-Benz GLE. It's around 8 inches shorter than the newest rival, the Lexus TX 550h Plus, or the TX in general. Compared to the XC60, this car is around 10 inches longer overall. But again, this is a mid-size SUV with a third row seat as standard, but it's not quite as large as some of the competitors. So Volvo is going to be working on that, of course, for the next generation. You can see, looking at the wheels, these are a new wheel that I saw was added, I believe, either last year or this year. It's a 21-inch wheel with kind of like a two-spoke design, or I'm sorry, it's a twin color design with the machine finish and the black inner pockets. You can see there's a little plastic cover that's covering the lug nuts. You have a 14.4-inch rotor, ventilated rotor in the front with standard air suspension on this model. I'm sorry, it's not standard, it's optional. The air suspension allows the car to kind of raise up the ground clearance from 8.3 to 9.9 inches. The charge port door is located right here on the driver's side fender. You can see it still uses the J1772 plug. This has a 3.7 kilowatt onboard level 2 charger, which is actually pretty slow. This car takes around 5 hours to charge on a level 2 with a 48 amp. Or around 11 hours to charge on just a level 1 outlet. That is pretty slow. Again, something like the new Lexus TX will charge roughly twice as fast as this vehicle, along with the BMW and the Mercedes. They will charge almost 3 times as quick as this vehicle on a level 2. Now, in terms of the rest of the look, you can see the mirrors. They are body colored, power folding with integrated turn signals. I like the silver roof rails with the panoramic glass roof. There's a lot of chrome trim on this car. You can't black out the chrome anymore, which some of you may prefer that look. You can see looking at the rest of the design, this is still a really handsome, attractive looking vehicle, and it still sells really well for Volvo. So bravo on them for kind of keeping around a design that has aged extremely well, and it still sells extremely well too. Now, looking at the rear, you can see typical Volvo look. It doesn't really look any different versus the last, or versus when this model first came out in 2016. You can see you have the signature stacked LED taillights with LED turn signal, which is nice. It spells out Volvo on the back. There's a T8 all-wheel drive recharge badge to show people that you have the plug-in hybrid model. And then you can see down here, no visible exhaust tips. That's kind of what the industry is going with, considering they're removing exhaust tips and going fully electric in the next decade or so. Now, looking at the cargo area, this is, again, an area where a lot of owners are, looking to find the most space. And the XC90 used to have pretty class-leading space, although I will say that I had to dig a little bit to find the true specs. Now, when the third row seat is up, which by the way, it comes standard, you get around 11.2 cubic feet of storage space. That is pretty small. The plug-in hybrid does reduce it by about a cubic feet compared to the non-plug-in hybrid. You can see underneath here, there's a little bit of underfloor storage. There's your level 1 mobile charger that the car comes with. If you want to lower the rear suspension, you can do that here from a button. Remember that air suspension is a $1,700 upcharge. Fold down this seat over here, you can see that expands the cargo capacity to around 34 cubic feet of space, which is still pretty usable. Fold down the second row, Volvo says you get a maximum of 64 cubic feet of space. Now, I will say on Volvo's website, they're claiming 85.7 cubic feet. That is like the maximum cargo when you're like folding down every seat, you're pushing the front passenger seat forward, you're including the underfloor storage and the nooks and such. I don't find that as a more realistic number. So 64 cubic feet to me is the more realistic number. So compared to the competitors, the smaller size of the XC90 does limit the cargo capacity a little bit compared to something like the new Lexus TX. So on the outside, the 2024 XC90 doesn't look all that different from when this car first came out, but let's go ahead and hop into the interior and see some of the changes that Volvo has made. Let me first show you guys the key fob. You can see this is the Volvo Smart Key Access System, which basically means it has your usual buttons for lock, unlock, power liftgate, and you also have a panic function. This key fob definitely used to be a lot nicer when Volvo first introduced this model. It used to be wrapped in the same beautiful leather that the car actually came with on the inside. It was custom tailored to the actual interior color, and now it's just kind of a black plastic key. So it's sad to see the company took away that nice little detail that they used to have. Now, as I approach the door handle, you can see traditional door handle. This car does not offer a walkaway lock or unlock feature like some competitors. So touch that little ridge area there, that little indentation that will lock the door, that'll fold the mirrors for you electrically. Touch the back of the door handle, that will unlock the door for you automatically. Now, my particular tester with the vapor gray exterior has the maroon brown full leather interior, which this interior, as you can see, typical Volvo has really nice, a nice look and feel to it. The seats, they adjust, I believe, in like 14 different ways. ways. They are heated and ventilated, and they also offer a back massage on them. That massage is part of a lounge package. This maroon brown interior is definitely a nice color combination. You can also choose your pick between 6 different interior colors, although Volvo does not offer a red interior, which would be nice on the Vapor Gray. Now you can see on the door panel, it's got actual stitching here. That's part of the Ultimate package, where you get leather stitching on the upper door panels. This really beautiful black low gloss wood, which looks nice. You can see the brown leather is on the door panel here where your elbow would rest. And then down here you can see, sadly, this is an area where I think Volvo could have used a nicer material considering the price of this car. This is a cheap, scratchy plastic on the lower portion. This area here is padded. It should have been similar to this area here. I think Volvo just kind of skipped out there. The Bowers & Wilkins stereo is $3,200 extra. It offers 19 speakers and nearly 1,500 watts of power. It sounds great. For those of you who are audiophiles, highly recommend checking that option for the Bowers & Wilkins sound. Now with 8.3 inches of ground clearance in the normal mode, this has a pretty easy step-in height. As I get it and shut the door has a relatively solid sounding thunk. There was a slight little rattle there I heard. And sadly, Volvo does not offer soft closed doors. Especially at this price point, they should be offering soft closed doors. You can get that on the BMW and on the Mercedes. Now looking at the rest of the dash, you can see it looks practically identical to a 2016 model, but the software has improved. You can see the dashboard has this beautiful real stitching on the dash. It smells really nice in here. Stitching extends here with that more of that black ash wood trim. And then when you want to start the vehicle up, you can see the start stop control is down here by the shifter. It's actually a switch. You twist it to the right, turn it on, and that's what will start the vehicle for you. It has the typical Volvo chime, and then you have an all-new infotainment display and a new 12.3-inch instrument cluster. So you can see here, this is the newest software that we've seen in some of the Recharge models like the XC40 and the C40. It's slightly customizable, where you can basically remove the GPS screen or put it in there, and then you can also access your trip computer functions and whatnot. So nothing too crazy in terms of customization. This right here is the 9-inch touchscreen in the center, which 9 inches is starting to look a little small. Actually, it's looking very small in the segment where you can go up to like a 15-inch display. In some competitors, the TX has a 14-inch display. This is running, of course, their latest Google software, which is nice, but in terms of CarPlay, it's actually just a wired connection CarPlay. Now, I do like, compared to Sensus Connect, this now takes up the entire screen. CarPlay used to only occupy a very small portion of the screen, but as you can see here, it's just looking a little small. The new EX90, I believe, has like a 15-inch tablet style display, so I expect that to show up in the new XC90 at some point. But wireless CarPlay should have been included. Sadly, Volvo doesn't do that. You do have, again, embedded Google into this vehicle, so it has Google Maps built in, which is nice. It also will find electric vehicle charging stations for you, which is great. Go back here, you can see all your usual apps and whatnot. You can adjust a few certain things, but overall, this screen still looks okay. It's just looking small, especially if you guys have seen some of the newer competitors. Now, in terms of the steering wheel, you can see this looks pretty much the same. The one thing I want to criticize Volvo continuously is the fact that there's no power, tilt, and telescoping wheel. It's manual. At this price point, it should be power. Volvo's been kind of just not including that on all their models as of late. They've been really resistant to it, so I'm hoping they'll make that change at some point. No paddles on the wheel. You have your controls here to control the instrument panel and your adaptive cruise and your pilot assist and whatnot, which is great. The crystal shifter is included when you guys go for the Ultimate package. That used to be exclusive to the T8, which I like how Volvo has now made it included on the Ultimate package. To put it into drive, this is an 8-speed auto. You basically push it forward once to go to reverse. That'll reveal your 360 camera, which has graphics and resolution, which looks good, although that's not quite as useful as some of the other views you're gonna find from some competitors. You can also kind of zoom in on a certain camera if you guys wanna see your curb view. You can also show your front camera. So this is nice, but I've seen better representation from other competitors, again, with a bigger screen. Kick it back to go into drive, kick it back down again to go into a regen braking mode. There used to be a time where you had to kick it forward twice to go to reverse. Volvo has fixed that. Instead, it's now just one time, push it forward to reverse, kick it back to go to drive. So they've been listening to the criticism and making the necessary changes, which I really respect. Now, over here, you can see your drive mode selector used to be located here as part of a rotary dial. Now you have to go into the setting display here and adjust your drive mode in the screen. I don't like that. Supposedly there is a dealer accessory which will add in via Polestar engineered an actual button to adjust your drive modes, but now you have to go between hybrid, power, pure, off-road, and constant all-wheel drive. That's also how you adjust the air suspension. There's no physical switch where you can manipulate the air suspension on its own. It's all linked to the drive modes selection. Most of you will probably have it in hybrid or pure mode, which in power mode, it'll turn on the all-wheel drive system or turn on the engine along with off-road or constant all-wheel drive. You can also adjust a couple of other settings here overall, which is, again, a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. I just would prefer to see Volvo just give us back an actual button. Now, in terms of the center stack here, you can see there are some large storage areas, although this is mostly for the cup holders. I like the really sturdy feeling lid that Volvo gives you. It's covered in the same beautiful wood. The cup holders themselves are a little bit shallow and small. If you look over here, this is a padded center console. Open this up. It's a little bit on the shallow side. There are two USB-C charging ports. That's where you connect your phone to connect it to the CarPlay. And then you have your electronic parking brake here. The seats definitely look expensive and they look great. I love the little Swedish flag on the side of the seats. The massage function, if I push the little button over here on the seat controls, you can see there's your 5 different massages. There's a wave, a tread, a combine, a lower back, and a shoulders. I prefer the wave. There's 3 different speeds and intensities. It's also on the passenger side. The massage function works well. It's only for the backrest. But these seats could be a little bit plusher. Volvo, I remember, used to have the most comfortable seats in the segment. I don't feel that's the case anymore. These seats are a little bit too firm for my taste. The Lexus TX and the BMW X5 to me has better seats, but overall it's still very nice. The glove compartment, open that up. It's a bin style, it's stamped and it's lined with felt, which is nice. The mirror here you can see is auto dimming but no digital camera. The Ultimate also includes leather stitching on the sun visor and this beautiful Alcantara material on the actual headliner, which is nice. There's a big panoramic roof which has a sunshade, and you can also open it up to vent in and let in some fresh air, which is nice. It opens up only over the 2 front seats. You can also open it up a little bit larger if you'd like, but that's the biggest it'll open. So overall, the interior is definitely still a nice place to spend time, but where it really shows its age is in the infotainment system with how small the screens are. And in terms of the space, it still feels pretty spacious in here and visibility is good. So overall, as the flagship vehicle, it still will impress certain people. It's just if you guys are looking for the latest tech, this is where the XC90 could leave you disappointed. Moving to the back seat, this is a family vehicle, so for those of you who plan to use this as your family car, let's go ahead and take a look at the space. Now, in terms of the second row, you can get it with either captain's chairs or this bench. I prefer the bench. The captain's chairs are $500 extra, and it basically just deletes this middle seat here, and it didn't give me an armrest. The last one that I tested didn't actually have a fold-down armrest, which I thought to be inexcusable, so my recommendation, just go for the 7-seat model. Save yourself $500 and just get the extra versatility. Now, you can see the door panels on the rear, covered in the same high quality real leather stitching with that beautiful wood. You have these manual retractable sunshades, and then you have nice and padded leather over here. Down here you can see it is hard touch plastic, the same kind of cheaper material from the front seat area, but Volvo says you get around 37 inches of legroom back here. Now 37 inches is acceptable. Let me get back here and shut the door. This is where I have the seat to drive. You can see I can extend my feet out. There's good underfoot storage space. I can cross my legs, but it definitely feels tight. Something like the new Lexus TX offers more space. These seats, they do slide forward and back to increase and decrease the space. So this is actually with the seat all the way back. So you can see with the seat all the way back, it feels a little bit better here, although it is going to intrude on the third row passenger space. You do have features like heated rear seats, and you have 4-zone climate control, which is nice, along with rear seat air vents. No cooled rear seats. Again, that's showing up on some of the newest competitors. You can see you have these little 2 storage pockets. You have 2 USB-C charging ports here. And you still have a fairly wide vehicle, so you can kind of accommodate 3 across. There's also an armrest that folds down and gives you 2 cup holders over here, which again, this armrest you lose if you guys go for the 6-seat configuration, so I would just go for this. But overall, you can see with the headroom space, let me show you guys what that's like. For somebody my height, 5'7", there's a ton of headroom back here, which is good, and this sunroof also lets in a lot of light. That beautiful Alcantara material kind of carries over back here, which is nice. But let me go ahead and hop into the third row of this vehicle, because the third row is standard, and Volvo says that you can fit a 5'9" person back here comfortably. Now, I'm a little skeptical of that, but I will say that they need to redo this seat mechanism, because it's kind of a really hard shove to move the seat forward. It should just automatically push forward. I think kids will have trouble moving that on their own. But let me go ahead and get back here and show you guys the space. Now, I'm gonna actually sit myself over on the other side. As you can see, this only seats 2 people in the third row, as opposed to 3 across, but holy moly, this is tight. Now, Volvo says back here, you're gonna get around 31.9 inches of legroom. I have to say, it is small back here. Now, I will say the 2 jump seats, the cushioning feels a lot more comfortable than I expected. But again, I'm gonna have to ask this passenger to move the seat forward, so they're gonna have to intrude on their legroom space, because my knees are jammed up against this seat back here. You do have the same Alcantara material here, Sadly, it's all hard touch plastic. It's very cheap feeling plastic. You do have cup holders. Thankfully, at least there's rear seat air vents. That's something that you don't get on the Audi Q7 and Acura MDX. No USB charging ports back here. But, you know, for kids, I'd say if you're under 5'5", you could probably fit back here comfortably for a couple hours at most. But in terms of the headroom space, you can see if I sit back all the way, my hair is actually touching the ceiling. So not great in terms of headroom space, and that's kind of where the XC90 is showing its age again. The smaller size of this vehicle is, you know, making for a smaller cabin. And I think if you need actual third row space, be sure to look at the Lexus TX because that has some of the biggest numbers in the segment. So it's been a couple years since I've been behind the wheel of the latest Volvo XC90. I've had a lot of experience in this car. It's been around for almost a decade, and Volvo gave it a big powertrain upgrade about 2 years ago, like a year and a half ago. It was in the middle year of 2022, where they upgraded the Recharge powertrain. And I've already sampled this powertrain in smaller Volvo vehicles like the S60 and the XC60, but the XC90 is the company's biggest car, at least excluding the EX90, which is fully electric. And this model here weighs around 300 to 500 pounds more versus an XC60 Recharge, and about 700 pounds more than an S60 Recharge with the same powertrain. But we still have the same upgrades here with a newly upgraded rear electric motor. We have a total of 455 horsepower. Volvo says this model should get to 60 in around 5 seconds flat. So we've got nearly a full charge here. Let's go ahead and put it in power mode, which we're in, and then we'll brake torque it. We'll see what we can get here on this little run, our usual run. Spinning out the front tires. Wow. That's pretty fast, actually. 0 to 60 in 4.87 seconds. That is a smidge faster than what Volvo claims, and honestly, that time is really, really good. Sadly, I never had a chance to test out the 0 to 60 on the old T8 XC90, which Volvo claimed just under 5 seconds for that model. Or maybe it was like 5.5 seconds, but that time is around 0.3 seconds slower, almost 0.4 seconds slower versus the last XC60 T8 Recharge that I tested on that same stretch. So that extra weight is slowing the car down, but this is still among the quicker accelerating vehicles in the segment. I haven't had a chance to really fully test out the Lexus TX 550h Plus. That is kind of the main competitor. There's also the X5 plug-in, which I did just drive. And then there's also the new Mercedes GLE 450e. Let's try it here without brake torquing it this time. We'll just floor it. This thing feels fast off the line. Holy crap. 5.1 seconds there, so that's with it more slightly uphill. But honestly, 5 seconds all day long without even brake torquing it or trying it. Anytime you just want to put your foot down, that power is very, very impressive. So I think Volvo has done a great job with finally giving the T8 Recharge powertrain option basically enough power to secure its place in the hierarchy of the XC90 lineup. Now, the downside with the T8 is the fact that this model here weighs a few hundred pounds heavier than other XC90s, and you definitely feel the weight of this car. It feels heavy, it feels a little cumbersome at times. It's very softly sprung, but at the same time, the ride in this model is a little bit bumpy thanks to those big 21-inch wheels. So my tester does have the adaptive air suspension. I think what's really happening here is the XC90's chassis is just starting to get a little bit old, and it doesn't feel quite as stiff and rigid as some of its competitors. I'll be curious to know what Volvo does for the next generation. There is a next generation coming. Like I said, the EX90 is not a replacement for the XC90. But other than that, I'm sitting here in these very comfortable seats. I can turn on the massage where I'm getting a massage, which is really nice. That's part of the $1,700 lounge package. And the visibility in this car is also very good. You can see out of the front, the side, the rear, very nice. Volvo does not offer a digital camera rearview mirror, which would be nice. But let me go ahead and cycle the drive mode here. I'm gonna go to pure mode because I wanna show you guys the electric only portion of this car. Now, Volvo seriously upgraded the rear electric motor on this vehicle. It used to make 87 horsepower, now it makes 143 horsepower on its own. It powers just the rear axle, so technically when you have it in pure mode, which you can default it to stay in pure mode, this car is technically rear wheel drive, which is kind of funny actually. Now, compared to its competitors, the Volvo's rear electric motor still is not quite as powerful as what you're gonna find in like the new BMW X5 plug-in. The Lexus TX also has more power, but I will say that you can basically put your foot to the floor without going past the little click point in the accelerator pedal, and it will stay in pure electric mode. That was the problem with the last XC60 T8 that I tested, is it just didn't have enough power, even when the battery was fully charged, to drive in fully electric mode, and now it can. Although I will say that it still doesn't feel quite as fast as I'd like it to, considering the price point of this car. But let's go ahead and test out what we can get 0 to 60 in just EV alone. So it's in pure, we'll just floor it. It's really slow initially off the line, which is not what I felt in some of its competitors. Again, I'm not going past the click point here. Let's hope we can get to 60. Come on, come on. 12.14 seconds. So it's acceptable, but I will say that I literally just tested the BMW X5 plug-in hybrid earlier this week, and that model with the new xDrive 50 powertrain will get to 60 in EV only in 9 seconds. So this is definitely around 3 seconds slower, and you feel that. I mean, every time I put my foot down, it has enough power once the car gets going around town. Like around town right now, put my foot down and it feels good. It feels like it has the instantaneous torque. Off the line, Volvo has tuned it to be so lethargic though. I don't really like that. I also like though, when you are in EV mode, there's no shifting. There's none of that shifting that you feel in like the BMW. A plug-in hybrid. It's kind of similar to the way the Lexus TX 550h Plus drives, where it just gives you instantaneous torque, and it feels like a single speed reduction gear transmission as opposed to the shifting that you feel in the X5 plug-in hybrid. But overall, it's definitely an improvement over the prior generation before Volvo upgraded the battery pack, because now, remember, now we have an 18.8 kilowatt hour battery pack and this extra power that the rear electric motor gives you. Although I still think that Volvo could have done a little more. I want it to be a little bit faster in EV mode, because as a plug-in hybrid, this is the way you're going to drive it in mostly, is EV mode in most of your day-to-day driving. And I think that on the highways, where I noticed when I took this car on the highway, it didn't quite have enough power in EV excuse me, in EV mode alone. Whereas in EV mode, like, I wanted this vehicle to be able to coast at around 70, 75. And it can, but there was a moment where I was driving on the highway and I was going up a hill and I had my foot to the floor, and it was literally decreasing in speed slowly to the point where the gas engine eventually came on, because the car was like, nope, it doesn't have enough electric power alone to sustain the speed that I want it to sustain. But in terms of the range, Volvo says this model will go around 33 miles of range on a full charge. Now, it is very cold outside. It's been in the 40-degree mark in my week's worth of testing, and I've only been averaging around 28 miles of range in pure EV mode on the battery alone. That's in mixed driving. On the highway, it does a little bit less. In the city, it'll do a little bit more. So kind of keep that in mind. Your mileage will vary, but that's a huge improvement over, I believe, the 18 miles that the pre-refresh model gave you. So again, big improvement for Volvo on that part. However, if you look at the BMW X5 plug-in hybrid, that does offer around 39 miles of range. The Mercedes is the range king at around 48 miles of range. I haven't had a chance to test that yet. The Lexus TX will also do about the same range, but I think over 30 is kind of like at least the minimum. 40 is kind of like the new benchmark. If you're approaching 50, you're kind of overachieving at this point in this class for a plug-in hybrid. But overall, this car is still very satisfying to drive. In EV mode, it definitely feels good around town. And you switch it over to power mode, which, by the way, I don't like how the drive mode is now in the screen. I don't like that. Most of you are going to leave it probably in hybrid mode, where in hybrid mode, if you are light on the throttle at certain points, it'll stay in EV, but then go past a click point, you can hear the engine come on. But it really is smooth. That's what I like about this new T8 powertrain, is the transition between EV and gas, and the transmission is a lot smoother now. And I also like how you don't really feel the shifting. The engine doesn't sound great. It's not the best sounding engine. It's still a four-cylinder, a wheezy sounding four-cylinder. It's nothing like the straight six that you get in the BMWs, which is, I think, a reason to go for the BMWs, to get the straight six. And then in terms of fuel efficiency, I averaged around 26 miles per gallon in hybrid mode when the battery was depleted. So that's not great. However, this car will do close to 500 miles of range on a full tank because of the large 18.5 gallon fuel tank, or at least large for a plug-in hybrid. But overall, the XC90, despite its age, it's still relatively appealing. Although if you start driving the competition, you start to see kind of the dents in the XC90's armor. It is an old platform. It's an old vehicle. Volvo's getting ready to replace it. But I have to say, it still shines in certain areas. And for those of you who are big fans of Volvos and you've been waiting to get your hands on the plug-in hybrid model, they definitely made some great improvements when they upgraded the powertrain about 1.5 years ago. So even though the 2024 XC90 is now one of the oldest mid-size luxury SUVs that you're going to find in the segment, I have to say Volvo has done a phenomenal job with keeping this vehicle fresh. Yes, it is definitely getting old, especially if you look at the interior with that small 9-inch display. The chassis doesn't feel quite as stiff or as plush as some of the newer competitors, which are built on newer architectures. This car still has plenty of things to like. As you guys saw, the performance is pretty surprising. 0 to 60 in 4.8 to 5 seconds all day long is very much what buyers are expecting in this type of vehicle. I do expect and hope that Volvo will eventually continue to improve their electric-only range. I would like to see the rear electric motor deliver around 50 more horsepower to give this car more of an EV feel in day-to-day driving. This is obviously a huge, significant improvement over the pre-refresh model, but the extra weight and size of the XC90 hurts the plug-in hybrid powertrain to where it doesn't feel quite as strong in EV-only driving compared to the smaller competitor or the smaller offering like the XC60 and, of course, the S60, which is a sedan. In terms of the interior, it still has a high quality feel. Love the leather stitching throughout the rest of the interior. The seats are relatively comfortable, although I think the Lexus TX for me has more plush and comfortable seats along with the refreshed BMW X5. The second row offers average amounts of space. The third row is pretty much good for people that are 5'5" and shorter. Volvo says you can fit people up to 5'9". I'm a little skeptical. It's not quite very spacious back there. In terms of the cargo, it's also average to slightly below average. In terms of the efficiency, I am surprised to see almost 500 miles of range on a full tank. You add in the electric only range, which I was getting just under 30 miles of range in my actual testing. It is certainly, again, very class competitive. So there's nothing really about this vehicle that stands out the way it used to. It's still very much average, but for those of you who again have a soft spot for Volvo, there are still plenty of things to like, and it gets me super excited for the next generation because, as you guys know, the EX90 is not a replacement for the XC90. I expect the new XC90 to basically look similar to the EX90, but of course offer perhaps a plug-in hybrid powertrain again. Volvo again continues their forward march into full electrification. Now, if you are looking to get your hands on the 2024 XC90, these are already in dealer showrooms. They start at around $56,000 for the B5 powertrain, which is the 2-liter turbo mild hybrid powertrain. The B6 is going to cost you a little bit more. The T8 Recharge is the flagship of the lineup. This starts at just under 72 grand, around 71.9. That starting point puts it right in line with the X5 plug-in hybrid, which is around 72.5. We don't have final pricing of the Lexus TX 550h Plus yet. I imagine that'll be in the mid $70,000 range. And then the Mercedes GLE 450e, that starts at just under 70 grand. So Volvo has priced this vehicle well. If you guys want the ultimate package, it starts at just under $80,000 with options like the Bowers & Wilkins sound, the air suspension, the lounge package, the destination charge. This model here that I'm showing you is about $87,500. I don't know, almost 90 grand for an XC90, which I think is simply ridiculous. It's too expensive. This car is built in Sweden, so it doesn't qualify for the $7,500 federal tax credit, but if you lease the car, you could theoretically still work around that and qualify for the tax credit in your lease payments. But just know, for about the same money, you could also get an X5 plug-in hybrid. We don't know quite yet the final pricing of the Lexus TX, which those models offer a little bit more electric-only performance, and they also offer more space, at least the Lexus does. So there is still something exciting about the Volvo, but just know that it's no longer the only option in town, which gets me really curious to know what Volvo is planning for the next generation model. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2024 Volvo XC90 T8 Recharge. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.